David, unlike the government, we're here to help. Well, howdy, folks. Welcome to The Right Angle. I'm your dude, Alfonso Rachel, filling in for the Bill Whittle. With me are Steve Green and Scott Ox. I was going to say my buddies with me. I got to include my buddies, right? We are friends here, right? Don't kick me out before I even get started. All right. So, I saw that, who's that guy? David Hogg. David Hogg done gone hog wild heretic, man. I saw him put out a tweet and, man, he's starting to sound like one of our cousins. And, let me just go ahead and read what he said. He says, I'm working on setting up an LLC right now. And this whole process is stupidly complicated and expensive. The government should be making it easier for people to start companies, not hard. Also, there shouldn't be this many regulations and paperwork to work across state lines. Oh, man, my goodness, all these protocols and all these things that you got to do to get started, to start a business. And matter of fact, speaking of before we get started, how about y'all click that like button, click that subscribe button. As Stephen Green says, click anything that you can click and click it until it smokes. So that being said, I'm looking at this, guys. I'm examining what he's saying here. And, I mean, right from the get-go, it's like, okay, this whole process is stupidly complicated and expensive. The government should be making it easy for people to start companies, not hard. Okay, and we want to help David out here, right? We don't want to berate him or anything like that. It's, see, this is what we were trying to tell you, moron, or anything like that. The government, it's not necessarily their job to make things, easy for us per se. It's their job to protect our right to be able to do these things without doing people dirty and, and exercise, in illicit commerce and stuff like that, or impose or intrude upon anybody else. That's kind of their job, David, but they're not necessarily supposed to be our hand holders in starting a business or anything like that. But you're off to a right start, kid. You're kind of getting it. And then from here, he says, also there shouldn't be this many regulations and paperwork across state lines. The insurance companies would be loving you right now, bro. It's like, these are the kinds of things we've been talking about for a long time, David. So you're kind of getting it. And so, Scott, that being said, what do you think? I mean, for myself, I figure, hey, if a knucklehead like me can get it, anybody can get it. I kind of used to think like this young man, many, many, many moons ago, where I was more of a default liberal, default Democrat, kind of raised around. And that was just kind of like my setting back then. And then, you kind of get a little taste of the real world. I kind of like what he's getting a little taste of right now. I don't exactly know what his business is. And, but this kind of talking that he's saying, I hope he held on to one of them good pillows that he was trying to sell, because he may need that to bite on when those liberal progressives come after her for this sacrilegious anti-socialist talk that he's doing right now. But Scott, is there hope for this young man? I mean, what are the implications of this, and where do you think that this could go from here?
Well, first of all, I think it's cool that a young person like that is trying to get an LLC, frankly, trying to start something. And even if that turns out that he's starting some kind of organization to advance something that I oppose, good for you, David. He's taking action to do something, and I applaud that. I mean, one of my sons started his own business, and I look at him and I think, wow, I can't imagine 23-year-old me doing all the stuff that he's doing and jumping through the hoops and, figuring out the accounting and figuring out the legal ramifications and the real estate ramifications and purchasing and everything else that goes into this and the proper legal structure, which it looks like Mr. Hogg is dealing with right now. So first of all, I applaud young people who are trying to start businesses. Secondly, man, you're singing my song when it comes to the complication that is introduced anytime government steps in and says they're going to help you. Because of course, none of these regulations were put in place to oppress you. They're all there to help you. They're there to facilitate your life, and they're to protect somebody. And every single one of them was passed because of a desperate need that somebody advanced and said, we need to make sure that people are protected, that something good happens as a result of this. And all those good intentions accumulate in Washington, D.C., and it's kind of like if you mix two different chemicals that are benign or even beneficial on their own, but when you put them together, they create a poison or an explosion. That's what happens with government good intentions getting involved in other things in our lives. So it's good that you're getting this at an early age, David, because I think that'll help to shape your future in entirely salutary ways, not only for yourself and your family, but for everybody you do business with. And maybe you'll use some of that clear passion that you have to find ways, first of all, to disentangle yourself from the entanglement of the state, but also maybe to advocate on behalf of small businesses to make it easier to start those things, because the vast majority of employment in this country comes from small businesses, and the greatest hope for the future of this country lies in small businesses. And years ago, Abraham Lincoln gave a speech where he talked about how the real ambition of any man was to work for somebody else only long enough so he could get his own tools and then work for himself. And that is admirable. And I applaud David Hogg for this.
Indeed, man. It sounds like, the young man is growing up. Matter of fact, I think once this idea, set into his head, he had this epiphany. I think that's when he sprouted his beard. I think, he experienced a little bit.
He became a man that
right?
day, yeah.
A little bit of manhood, right? So now, Steve, I'm thinking, is the irony lost on these people? I mean, I don't expect him to just get it overnight and do a full on turn, but from what he's experiencing I'm just wondering, will you realize, and everybody's different. Like for me, there's the stages that I went through to come to the conclusions that I came to, but in what it is that he's learning, he's seeing that this applies to so many things. It applies to so much on what's going to interfere. And I'm talking about if you want to go down the so-called progressive road, which ultimately is as progressive as cancer to the society, to commerce and whatever, the economy, you name it. So, I'm hoping that he'll see that the full scope of this ideology is going to infringe upon every stage of what it is that he's going to be trying to do, whatever it is that he's trying to do. Because at this point, and I guess maybe my real question is this: he's seeing this right now, maybe because he's sour, because his first venture failed when he tried to have a little pillow fight with Mike Lindell, and that didn't seem to turn out so good. So he needs something to blame. Is it a case of him trying to blame this on, this overreaching government, or does he just have an uninteresting product or service or brand that's just not getting out there? And I asked that also including does the irony stay lost on these people?
Well, he seems to finally be getting an education, which is kind of ironic considering he's been going to Harvard, I think. But it took the real world to actually maybe start teaching us some things. What I'm about to say, I say with in hope, not in anger or meanness or spite or anything like that. But David Hogg has been very loudly ignorant and wrong about a great number of things that had nothing to do with the thing that made him famous. And he's been celebrated by the left for being so loud and ignorant and wrong about such a great number of things that I think it has done him great harm. I'm sure it's made him money or whatever, but as a human being, it's done him great harm. And he's had this brain full of mush because that's what he has been taught all of his 22 years now. And if he's getting some real world experience that replaces some of that mush with some hard-earned knowledge, well, good for him. And it reminds me the first rule of holes: when you're in one, stop digging. Well, Steve's second law of holes is when your opponent is in one, hand him a bigger and nicer shovel. Just, really let him get to work in there. This is not that case. What this is a case of is my corollary to Napoleon's dictum, which was when your enemy is making a mistake, don't interrupt him. My corollary to that is when your enemy is busy talking his way to your position, don't interrupt him. And maybe that's what Hogg is doing here. And if so, God bless him. I hope he I hope he learns a lot. This should be quite an education starting a small business. That said, what this reminds me of? This country has so lost its way. Before World War II, Hong Kong was a British colony, but it was just this tiny little fishing village of a thing. It did really hadn't amounted to much. After the war, I can't remember the governor's name, but the Queen's appointee who was running Hong Kong decided that to turn this fishing village into something better. He made it a law that no form to start a business could be more than 1 page long. So whatever business it was you wanted to start, the Queen's paperwork was just a single sheet of paper that you could fill out, in a minute to get your business licensed and up and going. And Hong Kong went from this tiny little fishing village to being one of the world's busiest and richest and most amazing cities. Until the communists got a hold of it and started clamping down as they did last year. So that's because capitalism, liberty, works on any scale, from the biggest country like the United States to the tiniest little fishing village like Hong Kong used to be. And that's the beauty and that's the magic of liberty. And I hope David Hogg's discovering that.
Indeed, man. And David, unlike the government, we're here to help. And our help will probably benefit you a lot more than the governments will. And, you're be happy that you're finding this out in a much easier setting. And you may deal with a lot of I told you so's, you might deal with some ribbing and stuff like this, but I don't think this is going to stick to you as much, or come back to haunt you as much as the Will Smith slap is going to haunt him. So look, you got off light. And right now you could really show, some of that potential brilliance. I said, you know what? Let me go ahead and consider some other things. Don't get overly defensive, to get a little bit of that tough skin, man. You already got the beard coming in, so you can man up and take some of the I told you so's. And, you'll come on over to the light side and see, the benefits of what it is that we've been trying to talk about and do what we can to, preserve this republic so you can enjoy the things that you're trying to do and the things that you aspire to, that they ain't going to teach you at Harvard. All right, y'all. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to The Right Angle. I'm Alfonso Rachel. I've been sitting in for Bill Whittle with my friends Steve Green and Scott Ott. Hope you guys will share these videos, like, subscribe, share, do all that stuff. All right, y'all. Blessings. We'll see you again soon.